Welcome, creatives, community, kind folks out there, to yet another edition of RPG with DBJ. This time, we are talking world building in the modern era. Now, I'm going to preamble a little bit as others try to chime into the chat and get notified that we've gone live. This series we've been world building through from prehistory all the way up to modern day. And it was suggested that maybe in this 20th century, we might start to micro world build through maybe the decades. I may revisit that, 1920s, 1960s, 1980s, maybe. But for right now, we kind of went from like world wars, the Great War, basically World War One, a little bit of World War Two, and now we're just going to hit the modern era. And if there's a demand for it, or hell, if I feel like it, we'll go back because I really do want to hit kind of the sci-fi portion. But for today, we're going to talk about the modern era, and the point of this is not Sevron, what's going on? Yeah, the point of this is not to tell you that this is the only way of role playing, but basically, like, if you've never role played in a particular era, what kind of stories can you tell? What are some of the problems? What are some really creative solutions? And essentially, a long story short is, hey, try it out. This is what I think you can do in fill in the gap of the time period. So today we're going to just do the modern era, and there are plenty. Really, there's so many different stories, themes, I guess, or styles of play in the modern era. But I think the biggest one in the modern era is, or I would say the two biggest ones are basically using all the tools in the modern era that you don't get in other time periods. And I mean cell phones, automobiles, bank accounts, the fact that we have in our possession a GPS device and a knowledge device, and even when we want to start creating some of our modern day stories, we have a lot of references to turn to when it comes to like maps and cities and demographics, population breakdowns and financial things. So we have plenty of modern day resources to help us tell modern day stories. And if you are relatively young, you're getting to hang out with your friends at a table, why not tell a story in your own hometown? That's one of the coolest things, right? Wherever you're located, if you know all of the landmarks, you're familiar with the neighborhoods, you're familiar with some of the little bits of history, the politics, some dramatic things that have happened up till present day in wherever you live. Those are great things to use. Zevron 08 says Al Capone, the half orc. Yeah, pretty much. Are you talking to me? Huh? Don't cuss in front of my son, you son of a bitch. Anyway, that's the Untouchables. Deadman Storyteller says World of Darkness and D20 Modern. D20 Modern, not bad. I mean, it was the go-to for like 3.xx, I believe, to do like a modern day system. World of Darkness and a number of games used a modern day, and I would say a modern day filter, but that's probably not the right way. They used modern day and then used a Gothic filter over it, almost like a shadow world living in our world, which is always great fun, right? Tesla Ranger, thank you for joining me. By the way, guys, if you didn't know, Tesla Ranger and Carol and Ben and a couple of people who have poked their heads here joined myself and Jeremy over at Erasmus Expeditions yesterday. Last night we did I guess about an hour and a half talk about exploration. He has a series called Help Action where he interviews different individuals in the RPG community and talk about a specific theme. So we did that last night. So check that out. And I linked it into the playlist. Third Pillar Thursdays. Just because it had to do with exploration. So check that out. Tesla Ranger, anyway, says, I liked D20 Modern, but it came out way too late after other companies had come out with their own modern D20 systems. Prue says Urban Myths could be fun to play with. You know, one thing that is fun, I think, in a modern day, is, like you mentioned, Urban Myths. We all know of urban myths that are pretty ridiculous, but at the same time would be kind of cool if they existed. The idea of flushing an alligator down the toilet and then it lives in the sewer systems. Shadow people living down there as well. There's all kinds of conspiracies and political ramifications of we already have a moon base, or we've already found aliens in Area 51, things like that. Yeah, Prue says Conspiracy X is fun too. Only played that once, but it's good fun pretending that all conspiracies everywhere is true. I've heard of Conspiracy X and I don't have it, and it is fun to think that there is that every conspiracy is real everywhere. Sounds like that would be a little confusing, if you've got, like, I don't know, dolphins are like the Shadow Empire. Dead Man says the mole men existing. I mean, that would be, now on that sense, there are plenty of modern day systems that are all about keeping secrets. Delta Green comes to mind. The modern day Call of Cthulhu games, Men in Black, anything related to like spies, Bourne Identity. The Bourne movies come to mind in terms of telling stories about modern day, where there's always like a shadowy government, shadowy factions. Mission Impossible movies come to mind, and conspiracy. Tesla Ranger says Conspiracy X is sort of like X-Files. X-Files is a perfect example. I don't know why they didn't come to mind in the first place, because I loved X-Files. But just even we can even go back to what we talked about earlier, like Warehouse 13. I think before Warehouse 13, there was a Friday the 13th television show, which had nothing to do with the Friday the 13th movies. But there's this idea that there's something out there, whether it's aliens, mysticism, mutations, technology going wrong. Spy Kids. Yeah. Yes. I you know what? Spy Kids would fit in there. It would, I mean, sure, we know it's geared towards children, but the idea that someone needs to hire, a small group of individuals that know what's going on to keep the rest of the world safe, because you wouldn't be able to put them in. Yeah, I mentioned Men in Black. As everyone says, all businessmen and lawyers are dragons. I follow the saying from Shadowrun of never make a deal with a dragon. Yeah, Shadowrun is close to, we're not quite Shadowrun, but we're getting close to it. So the idea that there are things. Oh, the Kingsman. Oh, sweet. Yeah, Kingsman. Kingsman's a good what you think you see on the surface isn't what things really are like. Now, of course, when it comes to that, these kind of stories, we're more or less thinking of like the player characters are playing skilled human beings, but they don't have much more than that. They tend to be fighting things that are far out of their range. But if we go into, say, Dresden Files, or we start to flow into Hellboy, you could incorporate some of those elements, right? Where the player characters are, they have magical talents, psionic talents. They're mentalists. They are shapeshifters. They are aliens. Like, you could really play up. There was an animated movie where the heroes were versions of classic monsters that we knew from the past, like yeah, Austin Powers, yeah, oh for shame, yeah, www.sh.com. So I mean, you could really, like, let's say Creature from the Black Lagoon, the vampires, um, uh, aliens that were captured, alien, Area 51, the fifth attack of the 50-foot woman, the blob, like all of those things could actually be like real, even though movies were made about them, and you could make them real, and then the player characters could, confront them and stop them from, alien invasions to opening up King Tut's tomb or something like that. Proust says heists, politics, prisoner rescues, escape prisoner hunts all lend well to modern stories. Absolutely, the bounty hunter-esque individuals and escape stories are plentiful. The what's the movie, Triple X or something, like you're the few people in the world that we can trust and have the skills to stop this particular thing. If you choose to take this mission, this will self-destruct in 5 seconds or what have you. 24, sweet. I love that show. But yeah, 24 is a great example of a secret no one else knows. You have a short amount of time, 24 hours, and nobody trusts you, right? And so now you're running from the authorities, you're running from criminals, maybe you're calling up a number of contacts. And if we follow storytelling today, even when cell phones became a thing, first they were flip phones. Now that we have cell phones, you always see, like, the camera, you'll see someone pick up a cell phone, and then on the side of the camera, they'll show you what they're texting, and showing you images, or even in cell phones now are shorthand, where someone will say, I text you all the information you need. And then they later on, they can just fill in the blank, whether it's photographs of suspects, whether they're maps of where you're going to, whether GPS coordinates. For some reason, instantly, everyone always has someone else's cell phone number, even though you never see them really adding it to their contacts, right? They'll steal a cell phone from an innocent person, or steal a car, and there'll be a phone inside. They'll turn it on, and just for some reason, they go 1, 2, boop, and then all of a sudden, someone else answers on the other line. But again, it's shorthand. Salah says that old heist movie Heat, I think some actual robbers were big fans of that movie and got inspired from it. Yeah, Heat is a brilliant movie, because you end up delving. It was like a parallel story of the heroes, the detective, and the process of going through these bank robbers, and then going through the story of the criminals. And that's a very modern day, I would say, last 5 to 10 year storyline, where there are criminals and people who are doing relatively evil acts, but we get to find out about their motivations, the reasons why they have to do it. The bank robber that's trying to get the money to pay for a very rare operation. The criminal who's had a tough, upbringing as a child, and this is all that they've known, and but they don't want to hurt anybody. And of course, you always have to get that one person, like Jeremy Renner in the movie The Town, where there's always that one person that's just like, sure, I have other options, but I'm pretty much a bastard, and I'm not apologetic. I'm unapologetic for it, and if I've got to kill people, I will, kind of thing. And that could also be another like shadowy background complication, where the PCs are in some way related to one or more other individuals, or part of a faction that's truly heinous. So the PCs might be spies, but they might be part of a government conspiracy where there are other people who are assassins, kind of like Mission Impossible going after the Rogue Nation. In Mission Impossible, they're like, oh, we're going to save the world. Oh, Taken. Oh, yeah. Guess what? We're PCs with a certain set of skills. I suggest you let her go now, because I'm gonna throat punch the hell out of you, right? And so being able to being able to harness what we consider our modern day skills and then use them across a wide range of environments, I think is a really great story for theme for modern storytelling. Tesla Ranger says Stargate SG-1 fight advanced aliens with modern day military weapons. They almost never use the aliens' advanced weapons because it turns out that normal military weapons are better. You know, you did bring up something with Stargate. There was okay, I'm not going to go into it, but there was a Stargate Atlantis was a version to delve into the under the seas. Basically, you know, there are civilizations down underwater you could have. Azal says, oh, that movie of the guy who took a hospital hostage to get his son a heart transplant. The PCs could be the ones being caught up as hostages by people wanting better health care. John Q, where he goes into the hospital, holds everybody at gunpoint, and then admits towards the very end. I know I'm giving away spoilers. And at the end of the movie, he basically, the gun didn't have any bullets in it, but he had one bullet in his pocket, and it was only for himself. And he basically comes to the point of deciding to use the gun on himself to blow himself away so that his heart could be transplanted into his son, because he couldn't afford the medical care to for the transplant. And that could be that's a big thing too, fighting against the man, right? Evil corporations that are Werewolf the Apocalypse is about that, where there are evil corporations that are harming the environment. They are it's basically like human slavery for doing things and taking down these, white collar criminals that are also like funding terrorists or something like that, and then exposing them or finding out that they are pretty much immune to the regular legal system. So like the Equalizer, you're going out and finding these criminals, and maybe in certain role-playing games, they might be more than a little bit. As was mentioned before, all lawyers are dragons. Like there could be this larger conspiracy of these individuals that are much more than just an evil human. They might be evil beings from another world or another dimension. They Live kind of had to deal with that too. Aliens that come to Earth, but they look like humans. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Zevron says, imagine trying to stop anarchist terrorists that are trying to bring down a city's structures to have everything chaotic. While making him look exactly like Heath Ledger Joker might be too much. But you know what? That's a great plot though, right? The people trying to bring down society, and the PCs are racing around trying to stop it. And then of course you always have to have those naysayers, right? Like there's the city council people who are like, I don't want these people running around my city. We've got to stop the heroes. And for some reason, they never see the bad guys doing stuff. They always see the heroes picking up the pieces of crap. Ooh. Tesla Ranger says Fight Club to Zevron, but Fight Club. Why not? Fight Club, the bare knuckle brawling. They might have these like underground. You could have underground conclaves that are engaged in some sort of fight club, whether it's a test of mental strength or recruiting for something even more sinister, like bringing down the credit reporting system. 7 pounds. The Swartz says 7 pounds. Hello there, sir, or young lady, or whoever. 7 pounds, killing. The idea of sacrificing yourself to give of your body parts. Two of the biggest, I would say 3 of the biggest stories on television are always the procedurals, the medical drama, and the legal drama. So you could be player characters that are trying maybe to get racing organs across country to get to people that need it, because in medical dramas, there's always the running down the hallway, going across country, knocking on doors to find out what's going on, the diseases that are running rampant. I mean, in a way, I'm sure it may not seem as if it's, a lot of gun toting, but it is a ton of problem solving. Just like legal and police procedurals are the same way, where it's a ton of NPCs. They're every NPCs are always lying, just like the show Law and Order for, I don't know, was that 14 seasons or 18 seasons or something. There's everyone lies about everything. You've got to basically pick through the lies to find out the criminal element, because they're lying about something in their past. Like, really, I'm a furry in real life, and I like to go to furry conventions, but they're lying because they don't want anybody to know about it. But really, you're looking for like the kidnappers or what have you. Lots of stuff. Prue says China owns all Denmark's digital communication. I sometimes think about what would it take for them to shut it down, and what would happen. That would be fun to play out. Hell, China owns half the United States as well, and you could have 99% of our cell phones come from other countries. You could have someone that hacks into them, and that's a thing too. That's a huge plot of sorts, where you have like a company, or you have something, you have the black box that can hack into nearly everything, and then the ticking time bomb of the PCs needing to hunt down the individual that's like, I hacked into to the world network, and I'm going to have satellites drop out the sky, or I'm going to have airplanes crash into each other, or I'm going to have shut down, I don't know, submarines or something, or launch their nukes, or what have you. So there's always the threat of destruction of the world, and the PCs are, spies that can do something. But we can go on to other things, like someone brings up, Condor DM brings up Sopranos and mob politics. Someone else brings up Wakanda. Would Wakanda count as near future or modern day? Because they have lasers and flying cars. I would consider Wakanda is in a modern day setting, but I think Wakanda would fit better in a more of a sci-fi setting, right? Playing each of the tribes and their special, going out in the world and using some of their special gifts. I mean, I suppose it does run parallel to like spies, because even in the movie they had spies that were around the world, and they do have high technology in what would be considered a standard modern world. So I wouldn't argue the point against it, especially if everyone is like is a Wakandan tribes person that has different abilities. Like, there's the spy craft ones, there's the border patrol, there's the Jabari tribe, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. And by the way, guys, check out Condor DM's YouTube channel. He's starting out small but consistent in pen and paper RPGs. So check that out if you guys don't have a. I know he can't put in a link. You can't put in links to the chat, but check it out anyway. You guys are talking about Wakanda. Yeah, no problem, man, no problem. I'm a lurker. Don't worry about it. I am. Vince says they're talking about Black Panther and stuff, and having a king in real life is not really fun. But of course the idea is Wakanda is ruled in a very egalitarian style. Technically he is a king, and in many ways is a dictator of sorts. Like, whoever is the king gets to dictate what goes on, but there is a council, and of course, he's a superhero. He's the good guy. So whatever, right? But that's a thing, right? You could have these, using Wakanda as a backdrop. You could have these shadowy nations around the world that have been pretty much isolated from the rest of society, and so maybe they are throwbacks to an older time period, or advancing their own technological and political machinations, and the rest of the world is like jealous of them. Because really what it is jealousy, right? It's like, what are they doing? They can't have something better than me. And so maybe the PCs are uncovering the fact that, there's this African nation run by a dictator, and find out that they're actually pretty cool about things. and then find out that the government that they work for is really like the bad guy. That's always a thing. Yeah, there's Vincent says there's used to be a video game called Battlezone in the 90s, which played like a sci-fi game, but actually played in modern times, because the premise was that it was in the 50s, some meteorite with a high-tech material dropped with which accelerated technology so fast that America and Russia both had space programs. And you know, we're using modern day, of course. You don't necessarily need to quote unquote stick with modern day, right? There could be access to plenty of high tech things, whether you're playing like a G.I. Joe style adventure game, like I said, Dresden Files, which includes magic, technology that's not available to the modern individual, your average citizen, but is available to people, such as having like space stations and moon bases and underground habitats and arcologies, or things that are under the water. And those things could be, maybe the PCs are the police of those locations, or they are uncovering them from these other countries or shadowy organizations, because James Bond always did that, right? James Bond was always finding out about a Doctor Nasty or whatever that wanted to make a moon base, or had an oil tanker submarine slash base that could swallow other ships or something, and was out fighting them. Hell, even Captain America, you know, back in World War II, was like fighting Hydra. They had like giant sized, you know, tanks powered by the Tesseract or whatever. So you could absolutely get away with that kind of stuff. Tesla Rangers is an article in Pyramid Magazine referring to GURPS about the Red Swords, basically an armed version of Medician Sans Francais. Doctors Without Borders. I can't pronounce. I butchered. What is it? French, probably. But butchered it. And you know, alternate. What's the television show? Sliders is a possible modern day one, where in the television show Sliders, and I wish something like that would come back, because you could really do some fun things with technology and storytelling. But Sliders was another one where they would move from different time periods, but they were all modern. They were all what if society changed up to modern day. So what if indigenous people, Native Americans, actually explored the world instead of, you know, Europe doing it? Or what if ancient aliens from Egypt actually remained on Earth or something, and are existed up until today? Or what if a plague wiped out most of humanity, you know, like tuberculosis or something, and then still existed till today, or what have you, and all kinds of weird kind of things, you know. So yeah, you could play with that. Just looking at the chat, Condor says, Condor DM says, secret societies, the PCs have to protect its group's secrets and steal other groups' secrets. Slight magic skills, maybe, and saying basically like limited magical abilities. I would absolutely go with that. You know, having PCs that have maybe one, or maybe just only no more than a handful of special talents or skills that are far above and beyond human, like maybe being able to turn invisible, or turn into an animal, or grow to an incredible height, or become bulletproof, or what have you. There was a television show called, and my mind just blanked. There was one television show called 4400. Of course, we have others that have very similar to it. Like there was a show called The Event. There's a show now called Manifest. There was one, I cannot remember the name of it. You guys, I know you guys know it, where there were people who, they were extra special. So there was one person who could stand in people's blind spot, becoming invisible. There was another person who had perfect accuracy and balance. There was another person whose adrenal system could go so far that he had like super strength and endurance for a very short amount of time, but they end up having like severe limitations. There was a girl who had super senses, but she could enhance one sense, but all her other senses became blocked. Synthesasia. I can't remember the thing. Anyway, yeah, Vince goes on to say, yeah, I wanted to make a game about secret societies for a while now, where most conspiracy theories are actually true, with reptoids and ancient aliens in Atlantis and secret Nazis and stuff. Yeah, I mean, you could first of all, there's tons of conspiracies you can mine, but you could really go pretty far with them. Flat earthers, like you said, hidden conclaves of people. You could go into, Wiccan society, and some of these like black market societies where they're dealing in black market drugs and um, modern day human trafficking and drug dealing, and finding out that they're actually being supported by other conspiracies. You know what I mean? Condor says, of course, the group recruits special people, X-Men style. Yeah, where everyone has like a special skill, but maybe they have a limitation on it. Like someone can move at super speeds, but they become exhausted, or the person has, the typical like Cyclops. They can shoot a beam from their eyes, but they have to cover their eyes all the time. Or someone could mentally control someone, but they are afraid of losing their own mind from their body or something, or becoming forgetful, or going into having a trance, or having like a epileptic styled seizure when they use their abilities. Synthesasia is I think in real life it is actually a condition, but they turned it into a superpower, basically, is what happened. Zala says, secret, possibly undead Nazis are one of my favorites. I don't know why that's a thing, Wolfenstein and all that kind of business. Let's be nice. Zala says, the movie Dead Snow. Okay, yeah. I could see where you could have Condor says, Vincent says something like Supernatural plus X-Files. Yeah, Supernatural's another one, stopping, protecting Earth from the extraordinary wars and conflicts that are going on around it, and keeping people safe from it. Vince says, yeah, for example, Stargate is technically speaking also the same genre. Yeah. Oh man. You could also, Vince says, hey, it's solid. Those are my ancestors you want to kill. Yeah. But you could even in a modern day setting, you could have, the stranger in a strange land. So just like Stargate, it's like we normal humans go someplace else and then have to come back to Earth. Like we travel here to the prehistoric time and have to come back. We travel to an alien world or planet and come back. We travel to an underwater city with Atlanteans and come back. So just like we were talking, earlier in Stargate idea, there could be this thing where modern day people are going somewhere else and then coming here. And then you could even extrapolate some of the conspiracies and then give maybe special talents to some of the normal human beings today. So an example would be someone in the modern day that's able to replicate the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde chemical formula, or what is it? Knight's black agents are like Jason Bourne like individuals chasing down Dracula, right? You could have individuals that maybe someone was bitten by a vampire, and so they're like half vampire, or they have some vampiric abilities, or maybe someone's descended from a werewolf, or someone is I don't know, the government found the creature from the Black Lagoon and someone was infected by the blood from the creature from the Black Lagoon. Like, you could play with little things like that. Now, of course, in modern day, there's plenty of other modern game settings like superheroes. Modern day superheroes are always a thing, protecting their cities. They have superpowers from one or many sources. An asteroid fell to Earth, or radiation affected people and they're superpowered, right? maybe movies like Jumper or Push or whatnot, where there's one source of superpowers, whether it's like psionic abilities, or everyone has the ability to teleport, or everyone has the ability to ignite themselves on fire or something. And not everyone, but I mean the main antagonists and protagonists may have the same suite of abilities, and so they are the ones that you have to count on to get those things. Zevron says, as much as I hate the movie, Bright could be an example of a world with fantasy stuff. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we all know of television shows and movies where the execution wasn't the best, but the concept was great. Also shows elves being the dominant power, because I don't know, I don't doubt a race of nigh immortal magical beings would take over. Yeah, you know, Bright was the closest thing to us seeing Shadowrun in a live action setting. I mean, hell, in Bright we saw a dragon fly through the sky. We saw a centaur police cop directing traffic. You know, the orcs were like kind of the downtrodden, you know, talking about being blooded and stuff. So you could really have fun with that. It was even a show called, not Enemy Mine, Alien Nation, where an enslaved alien race found themselves on Earth, and then human beings just like inducted them into earthly society. So they had their own language that looked like the up and down beats in a heartbeat monitor, and they like to drink sour milk or something. So you could have a have something like that. Ooh, why? Thanks, Infinite Role Play. Thank you very much. Vincent says, Freedom Force, people randomly got superpowers from a strange radiation. But of course, Tesla Ranger says unbreakable split in glass. Yeah, where it's the people so far on the extremes of human abilities that we kind of consider them superhuman. Tesla Ranger, yeah, they had those weird. Well, Infinite Role Places, they had those weird spotted heads. Yeah, oh, man, right. Telling stories in modern day, I think it really comes across as like it's our fantasies meeting our reality, right? It's the even I'm going to even go so far as to say White Wolf's Changeling. What's after the colon? And anyway, that even in that role playing game, there was V. It's wow, V. Thanks, Prue. Man, V with the aliens that come to Earth to help everyone, and everyone's like, well, maybe they're not here to help everyone. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. That was watching it now. The effects and some of the storytelling, you're like, it doesn't hold up. But at the time, it was absolutely bonkers, right? Yes, thank you. Tesla Ranger says Changeling the Dreaming. What I love about Changeling the Dreaming was that you had White Wolf had this really great ability to have competing statistics, and one of those statistics was that you played a character that both had a foot in the modern world and in the dream world, this fantasy world. And the further you went into one, the less you had contact in the other. And I love the idea of, especially in modern day storytelling, that usually the main characters have a foot in this other world. For example, like if you're Jason Bourne, you have a foot in, you know, spycraft and trying to take out, like, you know, shadowy organizations, but you also have a foot in the regular world where everyone's just like, why are you running around with your head cut off? You need to get a job and settle down. And I think that's where a lot of the conflict can come from, when, you know, you're pretending to be a super spy, you're pretending to you be a superhero, but everyone else around you is just like, that stuff doesn't exist. You know, get a grip. Yeah, in the chat, Vince says, once had an idea for superpowers where essentially the best in each field gains a superpower related to that. Like weightlifters gains super strength, high jumpers can fly. There are tons of possibilities. super creativity, or the best lifeguard of the world gaining aquatic powers. And that's kind of how like the Unbreakable split glass movies are, where you have this like this person with the multiple personalities, where there's the personalities even have a transformation of the body, right? Where one person needs insulin because they're diabetic and someone else isn't. One person has like is smokes cigarettes all the time, and the other one doesn't. Might even change their like blood pressure. Some would even say might even change their fingerprints or something. That'd be kind of strange. I still cannot remember. It's not called Misfits, but there was a doctor that was going around finding and recruiting and training people who had extraordinary abilities. Like there was a woman whose vocal patterns could hypnotize you because everyone had a sound that they could hear that could affect them, like pheromones, that kind of thing. Zevron08 says V for Vendetta would be interesting. Players not knowing if the V-like character is a hero or villain. I like that a lot, like that gray area. And the whole time they're trying to, maybe this person is villainous, but the villain is helping the PCs with clues to maybe save people's lives, to stop other horrible things. But then you find out they're like bank robbers and they're kidnapping people and doing other kinds of things. Infinite Roleplay says our reality shapes our fantasy, where our wants, desires, and fears are made manifest through a safe and shared experience. So I could see where maybe like all the PCs are like on a pilgrimage or something, and then come to find out that they all have like special abilities or whatnot related to maybe the worst things that happened in their lives, right? Someone survives a car accident that killed their family, but you find out that they are now like, they can't be hurt or something, like their skin is bulletproof, or they could survive, explosions or whatever, whereas someone else maybe survives a horrific disease, and you find out that they, become immune to that or something. Oh, Constantine. Yeah, Constantine's a great concept and TV show using like magic, where you have a PC that's like, they have magical abilities because they have a relationship. I even think, despite the fact that people didn't like the movie Constantine, I think it had a great backdrop of people alphas. Thank you. There are people hanging around in the background with magical abilities and other worlds and stuff like that. I think it was a great concept in the movie. Yeah, the movie didn't quite go where we wanted it to, but the visuals were awesome. I loved it. Ricker says, I like the movie too. If you divorce it from Constantine and just go with it being another random dude named John Constantine. Yeah. Yeah, I know. The execution wasn't the best, but I think some of the concepts were great. You know what I mean? Dead Man Notorious, of course, Dead Man comes through. That's why you're called the storyteller. Alphas, the show called Alphas. The show Alphas had to deal with these individuals that were like modern day mutants in the literal sense. Individuals that like, we've even seen television shows where people are like, they have special vocal patterns, or super flexible, or have extreme endurance in being able to do things, or hold their breath for long periods of time, or are people who are extremely tall or extremely short, Siamese twins, and the person has maybe comes out with psychic abilities or something like that. They have this other person inside of them that gives them hints about doing things or whatever. Vince says, I would love to play a highly realistic take on the internet solves world's problems. There's a great video why Death Note would not work today because the internet would find out. Yeah. Would find out identity, Kira's identity in just a couple of days. They managed to find out where training camps of terrorists were just because they saw 2 videos of it based on random building in the background. Yeah, you know what? That's one of the things that's really hard to maintain in modern settings, and that is mystery and isolation. Um, Too often, sometimes, even in modern storytelling, whether it's TV shows or movies, like they always have mystery and isolation where some of us are like rolling our eyes. Like, for example, um, main characters always go places where there's no cell phone coverage, and they always seem to be someplace where no one knows that they're there, despite the fact that like the authorities can easily get they can easily get warrants to find out about your like social media posts and where your phone is pinging from. And they're always like, oh, we triangulated their area down to 600 feet. And you're going, yeah, but my phone always picks up when I go into Starbucks, right? Like, so to an extent, even today, like drones can drop a bomb on someone within like 6 feet of their location. So yeah, isolation and mystery is really hard to do and for us to accept in a modern setting, but you kind of have to go with it. Dead Man Storytellers, the show Superhumans, where that's the docu style show where I think Stan Lee helped to promote the show, if I'm not mistaken, where they had a gentleman who was extremely flexible and he had elastic style skin, and he went around the world to talk with people who had superhuman, air quote, superhuman abilities, whether they could they I don't know, they could swallow certain things, or they had like a certain magnetic ability on their skin tone and things like that. Yeah. People who could like put needles through their body, without being harmed by it, stuff like that. Yeah. Zevron says, great way to mess with the palate and have a terrorist like V tell him that he'll be able to help people, but it would serve V as well, complicating the paladin's morals and oaths. That's a great moral quandary anyway, right? The idea that you have to work with the bad guy and you're not sure if the bad guy's really a bad guy, and the moral quandary that you're actually helping the terrorist, you're helping this person get away, or you actually even using their help. And I like those kind of things. Yeah. Prue says, I mostly like the movie, and I suspect it's because I hadn't read the comics when I watched it. Also, Tilda Swinton always slays me. She's a great actress. Awesome. I love her in the role of like the angel, bringing the angel to bring about the end of the world, to bring about the Antichrist, because that would push people into worshiping God and getting their faith back. Great storytelling like that. Maybe not executed well in a movie, but I really loved it. Zevron says, like, helping Strahd is obviously wrong. Strahd, the vampire. But if he asks you to save his people, and if you do, he'd owe you a favor. If you don't, they'll die. Forces you to help the villain just in modern day. Buffy. You know what? Buffy fits. Buffy. I think Buffy fits in there. As Alice says, Stan Lee, Superhumans was an amazing show. Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think absolutely fits in that with the Slayer is born, and in the beginning of the show, she used to get like stomach cramps when she could tell they were vampires, and then the show just was like, we have like the professor and other agents. They what did they use? Genetic engineering. They had demons. They had ghosts. I mean, you could really go all out and go really, like my normal word, gonzo, with some of the things that would exist, and bringing them into modern day, whether there's aliens that have landed, whether there are still zombies around, whether there's other kinds of monsters like the mole men, as we reflect back onto the earlier part in the chat. Dead Man Storyteller I was thinking NBC's Superhuman. You mean Heroes? I'm not. I'm thinking you're thinking of Heroes, the television show, where each person had like a certain special power. They had like 4 seasons. They weren't all the greatest, but what was the bad guy's name? Not Cyrus. was it Cyrus that was the bad guy who had his power was he could kill you and take your superpower. I think that was it. Um, Zevron says you could do a survival horror in modern day, like maybe Aliens. Well, at any of the numerous zombie or rage zombie, settings where people are locked in a school bus, or they're traveling along, or they're in a hospital and it's taken over, or they're in a shopping mall and they have to protect the shopping mall from the zombies that are starting to spread. Almost it's the post-apocalypse before it happens idea. Siler was his name. That's it, Siler. Yeah. who could kill people, dismantle them and stuff like that. Yeah, that show I think went a little bit too deep into the woods, but Heroes was a great show. I think Heroes would have been even greater if they hadn't, like, I think Siler and Peter's character went a little bit too far, especially with like the time travel and the teleportation and stuff like that. I think if they held it back to a little, gave it a little bit more of a limitation, I think it would have been a lot better. I think it would have lasted a lot better. Prue says, answers Tesla Ranger and says, yes, those two totally carry why I like the movie. They're perfectly cast and directed, in my opinion. Yeah. Peter Stormare as Satan. Oh, that was in Constantine. Yes. I loved his I don't know if I can do it. He does a thing with the tongue wiggle that's really nasty, and like it's the tongue moistening is like, I can't do it. Let's see if I can do it. It was almost like gumming a banana type of thing. It was really nasty. Oh, I couldn't take it. But he does that thing where it's like he's thinking. It's a trick where he's thinking, but also being quite disrespectful at the same time about what he plans on doing with Constantine when he gets to drag him away. And then all of a sudden Constantine's body turns into like 10 tons of weight, and he's like, what the hell's going on? Yeah, Rick agrees. Heroes has a great premise, not as great execution, which seems to be a common theme. Yeah. Zevron Oasis sounds like Ninja Warrior. Ninja Warrior. Those could be superhero or superheroic individuals. So I think what we've come across is that, like, in modern day settings, it feels like player characters tend to be on the lower powered side, and the enemies that they fight tend to have far more advantages, maybe because they don't have moral or technological limitations or even magical limitations, such as the Men in Black stopping, alien invasions, or the human beings fighting off a zombie apocalypse, or the well-trained spies going after, someone who has nuclear weapons or something, the Tom Cruises, the Ethan Hunts running around in the world by themselves with limited resources, having to navigate the modern world that doesn't know what the hell they're doing while they start tearing up foreign cities and whatnot, and then eventually coming across the bad guy who's got like a robot or a big laser or poison gases or like cyborg soldiers or something like that, right? So there's always, it seems like the capabilities of the PCs tends to be better than human, but not better than the adversaries. And much of what I guess you could say, White Wolf, vampires, mages, werewolves, wraith, ghosts, changeling, like most of them, you automatically start out better than your average citizen. Just point blank, you're a superhuman in a modern setting, but then your enemies are that much better. As far as you are better than a mortal, your enemies are far better than you as a supernatural creature and such. So, and I like that middle ground. So you feel great. you feel like a special you feel like a special snowflake, but at the same time the enemies that you're fighting are just like, oh, they're kick-ass, we need to work together to stop them. Vince says, lift those cars and then jump up the building, save some weighted puppets. Leave them alone. I like Ninja Warrior. I think I like their backgrounds, because some people have like fought against, they had some hardships in their life. So I kind of like the stories when it comes to Ninja Warrior, more, rooting for the person that's fighting against their the conflicts and trials and tribulations that they went through in their lives. Men in Black still has, Zevron says, Men in Black still has one of my favorite monologues from Tommy Lee Jones. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. Yeah, it's the revealing of secrets, and you could really do that in a Conspiracy X style game where you find out that aliens did land on the Earth and that they are doing autopsies on their bodies. But then when you get there, you find out that the aliens were here to help stop, I don't know, some other kind of conspiracy, right? And it starts to unfold itself like a blooming flower, and it just opens up and you find out more and more secrets and such. So, all right, Game Master Toolbox says, I cast taxes and red tape. That's, what is that, like a 9th level spell? Because has anybody been able to like really like get a saving throw on taxes and red tape? Very few people make their saving throws on that, I think. Who says, if you also cast tax paid universal health care, I'm probably in Toolbox. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Don't bring up UBI, universal basic income. That's just like, that's game breaking. Those oh man. Tesla Ranger says the Game Master Toolbox is modern day slow spell. Yeah, taxes and red tape. Hell yeah. Oh man, there's so many. I mean, you could even have some fun with it. Wouldn't it be funny to find out that like taxes and red tape don't really need to exist, but there's like, I don't know, some kind of like mutants or like mole people or like aliens or something that created it just to slow us down, so that we don't like, technology and our progress has to be slowed down. Sorry, Zephyron says counterspell doesn't work on taxes unless you're in the 1%. Ooh, bam. There you go. Game Master Toolbox says you need the 1% template to avoid the spell. Oh man. Oh, I swear. That's hilarious. So anyway, guys, we've hit the 1 hour mark. We could go on, as always, in all these world building, whatever things that we've been doing lately. We can go on forever with these. Tesla Ranger says excessive bureaucracy or adherence to rules and formalities, especially in public business. Yeah, oh man. Hey, that's a game where you really don't want a rules lawyer to play with you. Oh man, they bring their like 600-page treatise on bureaucratic machinations. Oh shit. All right, so from here, we're going to go into world building into the future, okay? And so now we're going to take micro steps. We're going to go into like near future, cyberpunk. We're going to go into space colonization. We're going to go into the far future, to maybe even go so far as to do like super galactic empires and harnessing black holes and living on even the corona of stars and whatnot, if we want to really go that far, or even the ascendance of humanity to a higher plane of existence or something. Bureaucracy in boardrooms. Yeah. Thanks, Game Master Toolbox. By the way, Game Master Toolbox, just let me know if you have a YouTube channel. I know you can't post it, but just like in the chat or something, real quick, just let me know if you do have one and if it goes by that name, or not just me, but everybody else. It's Everon 08 says, can't wait for near future to talk about Firefly. Hell yeah. Firefly is, yeah, that's near future. That's not quite cyberpunk. I would say, you know what? It flows there. The Chinese going into space. and all that. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm no. Actually, I agree with you. I'm with you on that. Firefly, what a great show. So anyway, guys, um, thank you very much. It's a bit too sci-fi. Type 4 civilizations. Yeah, it's for some people, I think going too far in the future, the idea of like creating multiple Dyson spheres and dismantling planets and moving galaxies and things like that might be just a little bit too out there. Unless you want to flow into something like I'm thinking Green Lantern, the Nova Corps type of like intergalactic, Galactus, Silver Surfer, those types of individuals where maybe each person's recruited from one planet and you represent your planet and you have like I don't know, some ability to travel the stars naked through space and time, just with a force field and energy blast or something like that. um Vince says Tesla Ranger says K1, K2, and K3 civilizations, type 4 civilizations. So maybe I'm gonna look that up as well. Maybe we might separate our future civilizations that way. Expanse, they're still in the solar system. The Expanse, hell yeah. Absolutely positively the Expanse. Eclipse Phase as well, a role-playing game. And some of these other ones like role-playing games like Traveler and shit, Coriolis, Stars Without Number. Many of them are also that way as too. So anyway, guys, we hit the hour mark, starting another week. Going to things again, please check out Erasmus Expeditions and the help action panel that I was on with him. I kind of interviewed, gave a little bit of details about myself, not really anything really deep, but we talked about a lot of things. So check that out as well. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. There are people who are now finding me, so thank you very much. I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. I'm DBJ, Dave Brian Jackson. I'm one of the three, and hopefully more. Hopefully Vince will be joining us there as well. So Vince, Game Master Toolbox says, I give you a link to sci-fi stuff that will blow your mind. There's plenty of that stuff out there. So join into Discord. I'll try to find out some more things about modern, well, as we're advancing past modern day, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. An hour doesn't seem like that much time with these subjects. So guys, have a good one. I've got to head off to work. Thank you for joining me at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, it's not 6 a.m. in your time everywhere else in the world or even the United States, but thank you for joining me because I'm a little bit crazy. All right, have fun, guys. See you. Say Zala, Vince, everyone, Game Master, Tesla, Prue. Have a good one.